Wonderful. Well, welcome everybody. I'm delighted that you are joining us for this webinar today. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Sally Geyer and I'm the CEO of World Commerce and Contracting. And today we are going to continue on our journey of exploration with the potential and indeed the reality of artificial intelligence. As technology continues to reshape industries worldwide, generative AI has definitely emerged as a truly transformative force in so many ways and in so many different sectors, including the bids and proposals industry. This cutting-edge technology is driving growth, it's improving proposal success rates, and it's changing the way we approach critical business writing. Today, we're going to deep dive into discussing AI's role in the future of proposal writing and address some of the key questions concerning the impact it's going to have on the industry. And I'm really delighted to be joined today by Sean Williams, who is the founder and chief executive of AutogenAI. Sean, you and I met as co-panelists at an event earlier this year in London. I think we bonded over a couple of slices of quiche, as I recall. But I remember being blown away by what you had to share, by the organization that you had founded. Certainly, I shared your enthusiasm and indeed your realism about the impact that generative AI was starting to have and the fact that it certainly wasn't going to be disappearing anytime soon. So just to give you a little bit of background about Sean, Sean's worked in research, policy, business development and operational management for some of the largest and most successful public service providers in the UK. He's designed and managed large-scale public service contracts, both across the UK and abroad, managing businesses turning over in excess of 75 million and directly and indirectly employing over 900 staff. Sean founded and was the chief executive at a company called Corndell Limited, where he grew the business from scratch to 350 people and sold that business in November 2020. And it was after that Sean's interest in artificial intelligence led him to founding AutogenAI. And of course, his interest is far broader. And the impact of AutogenAI is far broader. It spans into the future of work, business creation, sustainable social enterprise, systems, incentives, technology, human potential, ideas and delivery. AutogenAI encompasses all of those things, using cutting-edge natural language processing technology to help companies write tenders, proposals, and marketing copy, saving time, money, and improving win rates. So in just a second, I am going to hand over to Sean. What I want to remind you all of is that you can ask questions. I'm going to hand over to Sean. Sean's going to do a little presentation. We're going to save time for Q&A at the end. So please make sure that you use that Q&A tab. You can use the chat as well. We'll be keeping an eye on both and look forward to getting into a conversation in the meantime. But Sean, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. Let me hand over to you.
Thank you, Sally, for that introduction. That's fantastic and great to see so many people on the call. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully, be able to see some slides. So hopefully you can see those, and I will take you through. So I'll probably spend about 20-25 minutes just talking through this slide deck, and then I really want to have an opportunity to take questions and hear what people have to say at the end. So I'm going to give you a thesis about the changes that transform the world. And I'm actually not a technologist. I'm a philosopher by training. So my thesis is not a technological thesis. This is a historical thesis. And my thesis is that the innovations that change the world do two things. One is that they fundamentally speed up a process. And two is that the process that they fundamentally speed up has to be something that is at the heart of what humans do. So that might sound a bit sort of highfalutin. So let me try and give some examples of that. So if we go back to 2700 BCE, the abacus is invented. Well, what does the abacus allow you to do? Well, the abacus allows you to add up and multiply faster. So what? Well, it turns out if you can add and multiply faster, then you can do trade faster, and you can do more complex trade. And it turns out that trading, swapping things with one another, is a fundamentally human activity. And the abacus takes that fundamentally human activity and speeds it up by orders of magnitude. If we fast forward 4,000 years, we get to the invention of the printing press. So what does the printing press allow you to do? Well, the printing press allows you to share ideas faster. It allows you to print books, and sharing ideas, persuading other people of our opinions, showing off how clever we are and these new thoughts that we've had, those are fundamentally human activities. So the printing press takes something fundamentally human and speeds it up, not just a little bit, speeds it up by orders of magnitude. That leads to a huge increase in literacy rates. It leads to the Reformation, the Renaissance, and critically, it leads to the scientific revolution. Why? And the industrial revolution. Why? Because you can share scientific ideas. And sharing scientific ideas then speeds up the dissemination and development of those ideas. That leads directly then to the 18th century, to the invention of the steam engine. What does the steam engine speed up? Well, literally, it speeds up locomotion, but critically, it speeds up manufacturing. And it turns out we humans are creatures that like making things. So if you take something fundamentally human, making stuff, and speed it up by orders of magnitude, then you change the world. Electricity, similarly, speeds up creation, changes the world. And then if we move forward into our lifetimes, or at least into my lifetime, I'm probably a bit older than some people on the call. But you get to before large language models, which I'll come on to, you get to the last really game-changing innovation, which was the internet. And similarly to the printing press, the internet speeds up the sharing of knowledge and ideas, and it speeds it up by orders of magnitude on what was available previously. So the internet changes the world. So we're going to move forward to 2017, and I'm going to explain why I think 2017 forms the invention of large language models. And you get this generative artificial intelligence, these large language models. What does large language models do? Well, they speed up the creation of knowledge and ideas. They speed up reading and writing. And creating knowledge and ideas, reading, writing, I don't think you can get much more fundamentally human. And this is a technology that speeds those things up by orders of magnitude. So I'm not telling you large language models are going to change the world because of a technological thesis. I'm telling you large language models are going to change the world because of a very, very human thesis. They take something fundamentally human and speed it up many times. So if you're like me, and I spent the first couple of decades of my career writing, I started writing proposals 20 years ago, researcher, writer, then bid manager, then bid director. I thought I was pretty clever as a human by writing. And indeed, I argued for 20 years that computers would never be able to do what they can now do. And I was astonished when I first saw this. So computers couldn't write, and now they can. What changed? That's a pretty big change. What happened? Well, three things happened, and all three things needed to happen to make this work. So one is that these massive silicon brains got bigger. So you can see this graph here between 2018 and 2022. You can see this exponential rise. That y-axis is a logarithmic scale, not a linear scale. So you can see the logarithmic growth from Elmo, cutting edge at the time with 94 million parameters, moving to Megatron Turing with 530,000 million parameters. So this just enormous increase in the size of the brains. So the brains got bigger and the brains read more. So if you, again, we go back to poor Elmo with 10 to the 9 tokens. And then again, this is the logarithmic scale. Now on the x-axis, you can see how GPT-3 had read 1,000 times as much as Elmo had. And when we say that GPT-3 had read more, it's not just that GPT-3 had read more, it's that GPT-3 has read everything. There is nothing else to read that humans have ever written. So Common Crawl, you've got 580,000 million words, 580 billion words, only 26 billion words in books. Before Wikipedia, I'm afraid what we wrote in books wasn't nearly as much as the internet has managed to create with 94 billion words. And if you add all of that text up, you get 726 billion words that human beings have produced. And large language models, this new technology, have read all of them. A human doing the same thing would take 23,000 years. So there's nothing else to read. We might try, well, people like Google are going to transcribe YouTube to create more training data, but in terms of the written word, this is it basically in the large language model. So the brains got bigger, they read everything, and then critically there was this new idea, and that new idea was something called attention and the transformer architecture. So this was a group of Google engineers, primarily Google engineers, in 2017. You can read this paper, it's not very long, it's about 14 pages long. Attention is all you need, and it proposes a new way of building these neural networks, a new way of building these silicon brains. And this new architecture is called the transformer, and it's based solely on attention mechanisms. What does attention mean? Well, it turns out in language, the most important words aren't the ones towards the end of the sentence. In most models, when you're trying to regress, when you're trying to pick what the next word would be or the next token would be, the ones closest to the end are the most important. But in language, often the words that are most important in a sentence are at the beginning of the sentence or in the middle of it. Language is strange, you know, it works differently to other mathematical models. And essentially what the transformer architecture does is it allows the computer brains to put the attention, work out where the most important words are in the sentence and give prominence to them. So a new idea, larger brains, and more training data. And that then leads to this emergent property of computers being able to read and write. So computers can read and write. What does that mean for humans? Well, we're starting to see this. And again, this would be like thinking about the internet in 1995. You can't really predict how it's going to change everything. You can't predict X or Netflix or, you know, kind of, you know, Facebook. You can't predict those things, but those things are going to come, and they're going to be incredibly important to the way humans do business and communicate and think about one another. But you can start to see the first signs of this. So this picture here is from the Hollywood writers' strike. One of the key things about the Hollywood writers' strike was the involvement of artificial intelligence. So people who write for a living, which I'm guessing is a lot of us on this call, and indeed like the Hollywood writers are people who write for a living, is this AI thing something to be terrified of? Is this something that's going to come and steal all our jobs? And a large part of the settlement of the Hollywood writers' strike was around how the studios would be able to use artificial intelligence going forward. This leads to legislative change. You'll have heard a lot about kids doing their homework using generative artificial intelligence, using stuff like ChatGPT. Never mind the kids, it's the teachers who are using it to mark the homework. You know, again, when you've got this sort of super powerful tool, people are going to use it to speed up their jobs. Human beings, fundamentally, we find shortcuts to doing our tasks. Here you can see, this is from Schools Week, 1 in 3 teachers are using AI to assist with teaching, including grading student papers. And then from The Guardian, a judge in Colombia using ChatGPT when deciding whether an autistic child's insurance should cover all the costs of medical treatment. So already in very important human domains, people are starting to use this technology. And as I say, it's very early days. So how impressive is this technology? How much does it impact humans? Well, this chart here shows the time it took to get to 1 million users. So if you look at Netflix obviously pretty pervasive nowadays. Netflix launched in 1999, and it was 2002 that it finally got to its first million users. So it took 3.5 years. If you look at Twitter launched in 2006, and it was 2008 by the time it got to 1 million users. So it took 2 years to get to 1 million users. Spotify, 2008, 5 months to get to 1 million users. Instagram, 2.5 months to get to 1 million users. And if you look at ChatGPT, it took 5 days to get to 1 million users. So it's launched into the wild, and instantly it takes off. People see the power of this technology. People are, you know, kind of really taken to it. Of course, artificial intelligence has been around for a long time. The term was coined in the 1950s, but I would argue that probably the first example of artificial intelligence as we would understand it would have been in Bletchley Park in the Second World War, cracking the Enigma code, and the work Alan Turing and the team did there, by most estimates shortening the Second World War by 2 years. So you've got this initial computers when so much of this, what would be considered human level intelligence starts to be done by a machine. 1950s, you have the AI, the term artificial intelligence starts to be used, starts at MIT, and Alan Turing comes up with this notion of the Turing test, that a computer would be intelligent, or at least we should ascribe it intelligence. I think Turing described it as a matter of good manners, that we would ascribe an AI intelligence if it could persuade us, if we couldn't tell the difference in talking to it between an AI and a human. And I would suggest to you that in a lot of contexts, artificial intelligence has already passed the Turing test. In 1960s, you've got industrial robots. You've got robots starting to build cars. In the 1990s, for the first time, a computer beats the world champion at the time, Garry Kasparov, at chess. This was a huge thing at the time. Chess was considered to be something uniquely human. That it was a human genius that allowed you to be good at chess. And in the 1990s, IBM's Deep Blue beats Garry Kasparov. And of course, now you will carry in your pocket a phone where you can download a free app, and that free app will be better than every chess player in the world. It's kind of an extraordinary journey in artificial intelligence. Voice recognition in the 2000s, IBM's Watson starting to show linguistic capabilities, beating Jeopardy in 2010. And then if we fast forward to 2020s, now we're right at the present day. OpenAI released GPT-3, which is what ChatGPT is built on. So this big model, this generative pre-trained transformer, remember that transformer architecture we were talking about earlier, that generative pre-trained transformer 3 starts to show this emergent property of being able to read and write. 2020, there's a paper released on retrieval augmented generation, which is the technology that AutogenAI starts to implement alongside large language models. And we're founded with the idea for the business is back end of 2021. And then we really start in earnest in 2022, building on this tech. May 2023, we release our Verity library and internet functionality, solving essentially the hallucination problem large language models have, and allowing organizations to base their bids, tenders and proposals in facts. You've got things then in May 2023 around content windows and allowing more data to be put into these models. And then in August, we released our mega transformations, where we are able to essentially have infinite inputs and infinite outputs from large language models. So what does all this mean for humans? Are these robots going to kill us or take our jobs, or some combination of killing us and taking our jobs? Well, I think the best evidence on this is actually the case study of what happened with radiologists. So in 2016, Geoffrey Hinton, who was at Google's DeepMind at the time, he said people should stop training to be radiologists. It's obvious that within 5 years, AI is going to do a better job than humans. And actually, Geoffrey got the timescales wrong. It didn't take 5 years. By 2020, artificial intelligence was already massively better than human radiologists at diagnosis. So most of what radiologists had been doing to that point, taking medical data, images, radiographs, etc., and analysing them, actually artificial intelligence was already better than humans. But here was the surprising thing. AI started to be better at radiologists at what they mostly used to do, but it didn't get rid of radiologists. What happened was it pushed radiologists up the cognitive hierarchy. Instead of spending their time diagnosing, they started to spend their time thinking about treatment plans and what that diagnostic meant for human patients. So by 2022, it was quite clear that the only radiologists whose jobs were threatened were those who refused to work with AI. AI hadn't got rid of radiologists' job. It had just changed the nature of what that work was. By 2023, we could see Yann LeCun from Meta. Geoffrey was totally wrong, and we have data to back that up now. And indeed, if we look at this graph here, we can see the grey line showing artificial intelligence performance surpassing that of humans. But again, you can see that actually radiology job postings have gone up at pretty much the same time. And indeed, the average salary of a radiologist has gone up. So this is not destroying human jobs. This is changing the nature of human jobs and what humans do. So again, my thesis, and again, I think history has shown this, your job isn't going to be taken by AI, but your job will be taken by someone using AI if you're not. So what does all this mean? Where's it going for the bids, proposals and tenders profession? Again, I'm really happy to take questions in a moment on what this might all mean more generally for humanity, but I'm definitely not qualified to answer any of those questions. I probably am a little bit more qualified to answer about what it means for bids, tenders and proposals. So I want to start with, on the people on the call, imagine a world where the software reads the documents for you and tells you all you need to know in minutes. You don't have to read the RFP. You don't have to read the 20,000 word accompanying document. You don't have to read the 300,000 word white paper, which the department released. You can just get all of the key information that you need out at the touch of a button. Well, you don't need to imagine that because we've already built it. We've got that in our extraction tool in piece, and that's a relatively, that doesn't rely on complex deep tech. It's relatively simple to do. Imagine a world then where the software is your subject matter expert. So no more having to phone up a subject matter expert who tells you they're too busy to give you the answer. But then when you spend 3 days trying to write what the answer is, they then redline all of your answer, telling you exactly why it was wrong, which they might have told you in the first place. So imagine a world where you don't have to do that, where the software is your subject matter expert and it will tell you exactly how to deliver a service. Well, again, you don't need to imagine that. We've already built that and we've already got that in our ideation tool in the AutogenAI platform. Imagine a world where you don't have to go and search for case study statistics and customer quotations because they're instantly retrieved. You have your organization's entire knowledge base and you're able to semantically search that knowledge base to get the exact fact or the exact case study you need to evidence the precise point you're trying to make for that bid, tender or proposal. Well, again, you don't need to imagine that because we've already built it and we already do that using the large language model technology. Imagine a world where you can research multiple geographies, service lines, partners and customer groups at the click of a button. Again, you don't need to imagine that. We've already built this out with a research tool that can read the whole of the internet, compare sources, tell you where there's disagreement, and then bring back a consolidated answer like a human researcher would be able to do, only in a fraction of the time. Imagine a world, really quite simply, where something I used to do all of the time as a writer, where I've written 2,000 words, but the word limit is 1,500 words. And you have to spend all of that time trying to reduce the word count, but without losing meaning and without losing any point scoring piece. Well, again, you don't need to imagine that because that's now possible using large language models. And isn't just possible, we've actually built it. Imagine software that makes you a cup of tea and gives you a biscuit while doing all of your work for you. Well, unfortunately, you need to keep imagining that because this is a tool for humans and artificial intelligence can do all sorts of things to speed us up, but it isn't going to make you a cup of tea, give you a biscuit and do all your work for you. But it might give you a bit more time to make your own cup of tea and get your own biscuit. I'm going to just take 1 minute to show off a little bit about what our customers say about AutogenAI, and then we'll go to a more general discussion. But forgive me the indulgence of 1 minute of talking about this. AutogenAI has changed the way we do things. We are doubling the number of bids we submit. When I use the tool, I feel as if I've got a secret weapon. It saves me time. What I love most is that this has transformed me from someone frantically filling in a page into a conductor directing the flow of writing. You see how this is, you can see all of this. It's about speeding up humans. It's just insane. That would normally take me a couple of hours to do. It's a really powerful tool. This is remarkable. I've never seen anything as strong as this. It's the most obvious and best application of Gen AI I've seen. So it's speeding up humans, making humans' lives easier and better. And of course, this is just one example in the bids, tenders and proposal space of using this. I use the term advisedly, magical new technology, which is going to change everything over the course of the next decade. And this is how we're changing it in our bit of the world in bids, tenders and proposals. I would love to take questions and thoughts.
My goodness, Sean. Thank you for taking us on that magical journey. It was really incredibly informative. And yes, there are questions I can see coming in, but a reminder to everybody, I mean, I've got a ton that I was writing down as you were talking. If you've got questions, please do pose them. Use the Q&A button there. Let's go to what we've already got here. So from Stephen Gubbins, Sean, if AI significantly reduces the cost of bidding, can we expect to see a spike in the volume of bids received per procurement? And that's a really interesting question, because if I take it from a lot of the research and perspective that we come at this from, there's an issue with a lack of tendering for many big organizations, and that's true in the public sector space, that there's a cry for more, and there's reasons why they're not getting as many proposals in as they might want to. But equally, on the flip side, does this create a risk of receiving a myriad of really inappropriate bids? So how do you square that?
Yeah, I mean, bidding is still a deeply competitive activity. So I think of this, I think of our customers using AutogenAI like having tyres that make you 10% faster on a Formula One car. So if you're 10% faster, you always win, right? You know, kind of, that's the difference between winning and losing, is those margins. So there is literally no point having a slightly shonky car that you put into a Formula One race, because you're going to lose. And it doesn't matter that you might have a piece of software that allows you to make a car that's going to lose slightly faster, right? You still need a winning car. You still need a winning solution. So what I think this technology does is it enables humans and organizations to put their best foot forward more easily, more efficiently. So what I hope that does is, for organizations who have got a brilliant solution, but just might not have the resource to bid, because not because they can't deliver the service, but just because they don't have enough writers, or they don't have enough researchers to do this, or because they're snowed under with 5 or 6 other proposals that they're doing at the same time, that allows those organizations where they're the best placed to be able to more efficiently and effectively prove why they're the best placed. So I think I'm naturally an optimist on this, but I think this technology, it takes away some of the advantages that you get from being able to afford a 200-person bid team of, you know, kind of people in their mid-20s who've all got first-class humanities degrees, and you know, which is, you know, all you know, kind of good. It's got quite a lot of us kind of like, you know, sort of can identify there a little bit, but it levels the playing field so that the best providers are able to tell their stories most effectively. And I think that's just good for competition.
Yeah, and you know, there's the question of ethics, and we'll perhaps come to that in a moment as well. There's a question here about, so what do you think about the rumblings that commissioners could ban the use of AI in bids and adopt technology to identify where AI has been used?
Yeah, can you imagine rocking up to a commissioner? It's a complex public service, and you go, I just want to assure you, head of procurement, when I did the financial model, which by the way is, you know, kind of 30 slides, it's 200,000 numbers, it's deeply sophisticated time analysis over, I want to assure you, I didn't use Excel. I did it all using a pencil and paper. I didn't use a calculator. I want to assure you, Commissioner, I did it all by hand with a pen and paper. The Commissioner would go, you're insane. Why did you do that? Your model is obviously much worse and obviously much more likely to be inaccurate because you didn't use the technology that was available to make that better. So I think there's a unique piece of time, and I think actually we probably already passed it. I think there was a unique bit of time where people thought of AI as perhaps making something a bit cheaper or a bit worse. And I think we've actually already passed it, or in the process of getting past that, such that you go, well, of course you'd use artificial intelligence because it better gets your message across. It makes it better to find case studies. It makes it better to support this. Now, of course, I think it's absolutely appropriate that in the same way you don't click a button and randomly let Excel make up some numbers, that a human has to sign off that that's done, that it's extremely important that artificial intelligence is always a tool for humans, that it's augmented intelligence, and that we call it human in the loop, right? There must always be a human in the loop whenever using artificial intelligence for anything, any human type activity. So again, our software forces there to be a human in the loop. So it forces the human to sign off the ideas. It forces the humans to say, this is what I want to add to the tender. All it does is speed up humans by orders of magnitude.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And one of the things we've been talking about, Sean, is actually talking about having AI in the loop, keeping the human front and center, and treating the AI as the assistant. It's the AI in the human loop rather than the human in the AI loop, which I think, you know, for me, that kind of feels quite profound. Oh my gosh, I don't know where I was going with that particular. Trust. Yes. So we trust a calculator.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we'd use a calculator to do our maths for us. And we trust Excel and trust it to do its calculations correctly and effectively for us. I think, and I'd love to get your sense of the trust issue. My sense is that there's still a fundamental mistrust that exists in the context of the use of artificial intelligence, and we become bamboozled by the hype, the disinformation, the reality as well. You know, the case in the US where the lawyer used ChatGPT to present papers to the court, and it hallucinated, it made up a whole bunch of case law that didn't exist, and of course, you know, I've always gone on about that particular one to say, yeah, but that's not, you know, that's the human's problem, because the human really should have checked and the human didn't check. So let's not jump on the let's blame artificial intelligence bandwagon. But nonetheless, we still have this issue with trust. But what's your sense of how that is evolving?
So you definitely shouldn't use large language models as a way of producing truth. So large language models randomly make up words to follow other words. They give, what's remarkable is that large language models ever tell the truth, not that they sometimes don't, because they're randomly picking words to follow other words. What you need to use is, I refer to this retrieval augmented generation, which is basically where you encode meaning in your current documents, so you're always able to say, so when you say how do you do health and safety on scaffolding, right, you know, kind of, you don't want to make up how you do health and safety on scaffolding. What you want to do is retrieve that information from your health and safety policy, from your best practice on this, potentially from the health and safety executive's website. You want to pull that best practice and then use a large language model to remix the facts, and you want to show where those sources have come from. So I definitely wouldn't use ChatGPT or any language models for that. You need to use software that is deeply built around the concept of retrieval augmented generation and factual sources as the definition of truth. So software which can show you where information came from, and then you as a human can decide whether you trust that source or not. So we got to that about 12 months ago. You don't want to use large language models, you want to use retrieval augmented generation, and that's what we use, and what kind of most kind of people who are concerned about factual accuracy are now using.
Okay. So let's address this point about sort of sensitive data, confidential information. So Sangeeta Fitzpatrick, I'm sorry, says, how do we protect sensitive tender information being put into the model and reappearing elsewhere? There's also another one from Patrick. How does the tool use the proprietary user's data when giving a response? Does it have the ability to use our own info in the research and response to the proposal? So I know that you have answers to this, and you know, I think let's talk about this in the context of sort of public Gen AI models like ChatGPT, people using that for a proposal generation versus using a tool like yours, like AutogenAI.
Yeah, look, there's two sorts of ways companies make money, and everyone has to make money to survive. You either make money by giving your software away free and selling the data you get given, or you make money by keeping the data absolutely private and secure and charging people a license fee. So if you're using any free tools like ChatGPT, they aren't free. They're just giving away all your data. So I wouldn't be putting anything into ChatGPT or indeed any publicly available large language model, because it's like putting it into Facebook. There's no such thing as free. They're selling your data, or giving your data away to other parties. So you need a proprietary licensed model. You need what we would call a private language engine, which is completely ring-fenced to your organization. So the learning stays within your organization, the data stays within that organization, and nobody else can see or learn from the prompts or the information that you're using or putting in. The notion of proprietary data sets. So we think of this as the memory of a language engine. So the large language model is the creative semantic power, it's the ability to read and write English and other languages. And then we build in our language engines. We essentially take all of your company's previous bids, tenders, proposals, and we then split them up into like narrative chunks. Let's call them paragraphs. It's not quite paragraphs, but let's think of them like that. And we then encode the meaning of those paragraphs. And then we say, if you want to write about, how do you deliver quality? Then we're able to find and retrieve everything you've ever written about quality, or subsets of that data if you only want to use certain bids or from certain years or certain geographies. And we take all of that quality information and then we remix it and repurpose it based on the scoring criteria of the bid question that you're currently trying to answer. So it's much the same way a human would. When we humans are trying to answer if you're a bid writer, when you're trying to answer a question, you go to the subject matter experts, you go to previous things you've written, potentially you Google it, you pull out the best ideas and you remix those best ideas to answer the question at hand. And that's essentially what we're doing with the artificial intelligence. That's essentially what we do.
Do you see, Sean, the real sort of advancement of private language models then? I mean, and I guess I'm going to expand that question by saying, are you telling people that they shouldn't use ChatGPT, or are you saying that they should use it in limited ways? What would you be telling this audience?
I wouldn't be putting anything sensitive at all into ChatGPT. I would be getting a proprietary model which you can use, which you can trust that information is secure and isn't going anywhere, particularly if you're doing anything for government or corporate customers, or where you're essentially not just giving away your data, you're giving away their data.
So in other words, in using those public models, you need to be really careful about anonymizing, redacting, whatever it might be. So approaching it,
and you can't trust the results. So the problem is, if you're not giving those models factual information, then they're just randomly putting words together for you. Now, don't get me wrong, I mean, that can still speed the process, but if you want trustworthy information, you need to give trustworthy information to have as part of the language engine's memory.
Yeah. And so private language models, do you see that as the future then?
Yes.
Okay. And where do people, obviously AutogenAI is, where do people start with that sort of thing? But can you just describe a little bit more about the process that you would go through? That you have this language model. Do you add an organization's data? How does it work practically?
So for us, it's super simple. You give us a body of documentation and we upload that, and then you're able to upload and add to that information or delete from it as you would with a very simple interface. You click upload document, click on the document, you upload it, we vectorize it, i.e. we take the meaning out and understand the meaning, and then you're able to access that as part of the memory of your language engine. So let's say I've got a document from the British government on I don't know, like secure housing, I can upload that document, and then I can ask it, I can then say, what does the British government think about secure housing? And I can get the information, I can read that document, and then get the language engine will read it for me, and then it will write me an answer depending on what question I'm trying to ask. So it's will
it tell you where it got the information from as well?
Exactly. And then we'll say, this is the source. The source is this document. Here's where it's in your library. Yeah.
And that provenance is, of course, the critical difference, isn't it, really? Do you mix organizations' data with other data? No.
So we talk about three sorts of artificial intelligence. So you've got what we would call internet AI. So, i.e., what we're doing there is we're going and finding reputable sources off the internet, and then we're returning those results. And we've got library AI, which is essentially your proprietary library, which is where we're going and searching your documents. And then what we call creative AI, which is your chat GPT type kind of thing, which is where it's making it up. And then so one is that you have the ability to just turn off some of those. So I can say, I don't want creative, I don't want internet, I just want library. And then I just want library from this set of documents, or from this country, or from these particular projects I've worked in the past. Or you can say, I want creative and library and internet. And then we label where those sources have come from. So we say, this is the internet and it's been drawn from these 3 websites. This is library and it's been drawn from these 6 documents that you've put through. This is creative, it's made up. You better check whether this is true or not, because it's creative, like ChatGPT is. Yeah.
More questions coming in, and this is an interesting one. What kind of data points would a bidder need to furnish so that the bid proposal reflects the soul of the enterprise and differentiates it from other proposals? It's interesting.
Yeah, definitely. So there's a few ways we do that. So we have what we call our inputs, and in our inputs, you can put your win themes, you can put your company objectives, you can put your company values, and then you're able to mix those company values, those company objectives, those win themes into your answer. So let's say the AI has written for you a couple of thousand words on how you will manage stakeholders, but actually that the bidder's really interested in technological innovation. So you can then say, take those 5 paragraphs we've written on managing stakeholders and weave in the theme of technological innovation. So you're able to iteratively improve on that. The other way you can do that is by what we would call extraction. So we've got an extraction tool. So the ability to read a document and pull out information. So you might say, read this minister's speech and pull out the things that are important to them. Read this RFP and pull out the critical win themes. So again, you've got that ability to use like a human would.
Yeah.
You've got a researcher say, hey, we're writing a bid for the Department for Work and Pensions in the UK. Go and read the latest DWP green paper and work out what they're interested in, work out what's keeping them up at night. And you can use the AI, this incredible speed of the AI, to be able to do that fast, right? Kind of much faster than a human. But also, then I should also say, what I don't want you to think is we've built a tool where you can drag and drop an RFP, click a button and write a winning tender. It's similarly, you can't do that with Excel, right? What we've given is a tool that helps smart humans write quicker, better, more efficiently. And if you look at those feedback, those quotations from our customers, from our users, they're not saying this replaces me. What they're saying is it gives me superpowers. They're saying this transforms my ability to do this. So again, and look, and last hard sell for me, I'm delighted. I get my team to do a demo for anyone on this call who wants a demo from us. It's Sean, SEAN, at AutogenAI. Have a look at what the tool does, because we built it. I am a writer. We built this tool for writers. This doesn't replace writers. It gives us superpowers. And I spent 2 decades as a writer. I still write, obviously, a massive amount of reports and emails and marketing copy. And I drink my own champagne on this. We use this tool all the time. It just makes it so much faster and easier and better.
I know. Well, we know from the research we've been doing and the conversations we have globally with our members that operational overload is the biggest barrier to delivering strategic value to organizations, and strategic value is a number one, a top priority. So having this incredible magic power that deals with that operational overload is phenomenal. I'm still full of questions, and Lee, when everyone's using AI and it's deriving no competitive advantage, where do you see the future then panning out for the profession? Again, a really interesting one. And I'm just gonna add to that question, Lee. We ran a session on AI at our academic symposium a couple of weeks ago, where we were talking about the difference between specifically the legal profession and the medical profession. And, one of the things that's really interesting is the medical profession is required. They're required to incorporate technology into their roles. It's like it's a mandate. And of course, you used radiology as an example in your presentation. Effectively, it's a duty of competence.
Yeah.
And and I wonder if that is going to be, as you say, the response to the commissioners banning AI. Would they ban the use of a calculator? Is this going to actually become part of our broader duty of competence?
Yeah, look, I think no one makes a financial model without using Excel. In 5 years' time, no one's going to write a bid, tender, or proposal without using AutogenAI, because if you did, it would be like trying to use a pen and paper and competing against someone who is using Excel. So I think in 5 years' time, there's no competitive advantage. I think it's massive competitive advantage now getting ahead of this. And it'd be like, kind of like the best, like if you remember the early adoption of the internet. When I was 21, I was working as a researcher in a bid team, and people would go see that kid in the corner. He's a genius. He knows everything. And I didn't know everything, and I certainly wasn't a genius. What I did know, which nobody else knew because my wife worked in tech, was this little website called Google. So when people come and ask me, like now, literally no one would do research without using Google anymore. So it's not a competitive advantage anymore. But for about a year when I was 21, it was an enormous competitive advantage because nobody else knew of it, right? So and I still showing off. I still reckon I'm better at using Google than most people. Because I learned to use it as a researcher, and I learned all the tips and tricks, and kind of what you can do in vertical, all this sort of stuff. And that remains a small competitive advantage. But the real competitive advantage in technologies that are going to become ubiquitous is in early adoption.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there is still a competitive advantage with using Google. I think that there's a number of people who don't use it still. Okay, a couple of things. So what's going to be left for the human to do? Manish says, with AutogenAI, what will the human bid team have to do?
You still have to drive. So you have to break apart the question. You have to understand what's really important to the commissioner. You need to pick the ideas that you want to major in. You need to determine when you're offered up case studies, which are the best case studies to add. We can show you the case studies you've got, but you're still going to say, actually, that's the one I want to go with. So, and judgment. So AI is very fast, but it doesn't have judgment. It's called artificial intelligence, but it's not, for my money, it's not human intelligence. Human intelligence is around judgment, is around understanding, and AI is just fast. So AI gives you, so one of the first things I did when I started playing with large language models in September 2021, so this was about 15 months before ChatGPT came out. One of the things I got it to do was using something called multi-prompt learning, was to write new P.G. Wodehouse one-liners. I love P.G. Wodehouse, like fantastic kind of author. So what you do is you show the large language model a number of examples of P.G. Wodehouse one-liners, and then you ask it to write you new one-liners. And what it would do is it would write me like 20 new one-liners, 18 of which would be rubbish, but 2 of which would be really good. But it doesn't know which ones are the good ones and which ones are the bad ones, because it's just randomly picking words, right? Kind of. But I know, kind of, and I wouldn't be able to do that, and I wouldn't be able to have that speed. But the language model does the speed, and we do the, we do the judgment.
And what about? So there's a lot here. Can it create graphics? Can it help create requirements? Would it help identifying if information is missing? How capable is it in those?
Yeah, so my data scientists and machine learning engineers are desperate for us to do graphics, and I'm holding them off at the moment. So we very deliberately specialize in text, but you will have seen, if you've seen DALL-E 3 or Midjourney, you'll have seen kind of these models are able to do graphics, and are able to do pictures, and are able to do art. So look, one day we will do it. We're not going to do it for the moment because I want to specialize in in text, which is a big enough kind of an interesting enough space in and of itself. Graphics is interesting. We're not there yet. There are other people doing interesting stuff in graphics.
And what about identifying if any information might be missing, or
this is stuff language models are super good at, and we're doing a lot of experimentation now on so there's this thing in artificial intelligence called generative adversarial networks. So there's a website called This Person Does Not Exist. Again, if you want to look at what's being done in images with generative artificial intelligence. And so this is an adversarial network. What happens is there's one artificial intelligence which is trained to say whether something is a human face or not. And then there's another artificial intelligence which is trained to draw human faces. So this one artificial intelligence draws a human face, and this other artificial intelligence goes, that's rubbish, the ears are all wrong. So that this artificial intelligence takes that feedback and then tries again. And then it goes, that's rubbish, the nose is wrong. And then it tries again. And you do that millions of times until you go, this is a human face. And the other artificial intelligence goes, yeah, it is, isn't it? Kind of like, so it tricks it, right? Because it gets the feedback. So that's called a generative adversarial network. Now, we're doing very similar things with proposals. So essentially, you take the scoring criteria of an RFP, and you take your answer and you say, oh, that answer's 3 out of 10 because it's rubbish, because it doesn't do X, Y, Z. You then tell our software, rewrite that answer, including those things. And then you go, oh, that's 6 out of 10. It still doesn't do, and then you rewrite it again. And so you get this kind of adversarial, similarly to in images where you've got an adversarial network. You've got an adversarial network here, which is incrementally improving the piece.
Yeah, amazing. So I think one last question from me, and you've touched on it, Sean, but I'm fascinated by this at the moment. What this means for humans, because rightly in your presentation you've talked about, and there's all the hype around, is AI going to replace me? Am I going to have anything left to do? What does this mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you've talked about whether it's human in the loop or AI in the loop, and those human skills. My sense is that what's happened over the last 18 months is also is causing us, and going to continue to cause us, to be more human. That we are going to really have to focus in on our unique human skills. And interestingly, when you think about education, we're not educating people today for the world of work, even today, let alone tomorrow. How much, what do you feel about that, the critical importance of continuing to enhance human skills?
Yeah, look, 100%. I think we are clever, inventive, creative creatures, and every technological advance in our history has led to us doing new and innovative things. My favorite example is given on Twitter, is if you look at art pre and post the camera. So pre the camera, art just becomes more and more and more photorealistic, right? It's all about, and then after the camera, you get abstract art, you get impressionism, you get because no longer now technology can do photorealism better than any human's ever going to be able to do it. So the game changes for humans, and actually it takes us to this magical new creative place, right? Which what can a camera can't do, kind of abstract art, right? Human can do abstract art now. Well, now of course diffusion models can do abstract art, and we'll go to something else, right? That's what we do as humans. So we'll all, you know, we're working creatures. We like keeping busy. We like doing things. These new tools that we get never replace us. They just allow us to do more stuff with these new exciting tools. Like a shovel allows us to dig holes quicker. Printing press allows us to disseminate ideas. The internet allows us to communicate and share information and absorb information quicker. And generative AI is going to allow us to produce content quicker. But all of that is going to create new spaces for humans to excel and thrive and be happy and struggle and all those things we do as humans. Yeah.
Amazing. Sean, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to share this hour with you, and to hear your enthusiasm. Your positivity and enthusiasm around all of this is infectious. Thank you for imbibing us all with that over the last hour. And of course, if you want to learn more, then there's links in the chat there, AutogenAI.com. Go and explore. It really is well worth it. Sean, you and your team are absolutely phenomenal. Thank you for all that you do. And we look forward to doing more with you over the course of 2024.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, everyone. Thank you for your time.
Take care, everybody. Thanks. Bye-bye.